Alright, let's talk about proportional relationships and unit rate. This is a little bit of a review, really, because you've talked about unit rate before and proportional relationships, but we're just going over this as we moved into some direct variation and talking about some word problems and starting with tables here. So let's look at this word problem. John is saving up to buy a new gaming console that costs $290. John's weekly pay is directly proportional to the number of hours he works at a clothing store. His pay this week is $174 for 24 hours of work. $174 for 24 hours of work. And you see that they threw that information right there in the table. So we got that so far. All right. Complete the table below given the amount that John is paid for 24 hours of work. So we need to fill out this table, and we could even go further and figure out like how many hours does John need to work to afford this new gaming console. So let's try to fill out this table. And I'm looking at it. The only information we have is that $174 that he makes, $174 for 24 hours of work, which we have right in the center, right over here of our table, essentially. So how are we going to use that to fill out the rest of this table? Are we going to double it? Are we going to have to end up doing some division? I think maybe the best method for doing this, especially when you're not given some of the smaller values and you're definitely not given like the initial value here, is to figure out the unit rate. I'll write that down real quick, but the unit rate, okay? Unit rate is like how much for one, how much does he get paid for 1 hour of work? Because if we have that information, we can use that information and I think find an easier way to fill out the table. So how do we solve for unit rate? Well, we're going to take this information that we have in the table. He makes $174 basically for 24 hours of work. And you can divide. We can take that $174 and we can make it 174.0. And basically divide by 24. You could do it out on paper. You could plug it into a calculator. And when you divide, he gets $7.25, which is not a lot of money. John needs a raise here. But he's getting $7.25 per hour. And so that's not like the solid answer to our question. And it doesn't give us all the answers to this table right over here for that section. But we can use 725 to multiply and fill out the rest of our table. So let me clear out a little bit here. And let's start knocking out this table. And we'll take it from there. So let's write in the unit rate. We know for 1 hour, so put a little 1 on the side of your table right there. For 1 hour, he makes $7.25. And it's super important, I think, when you're filling out these tables to find the unit rate. Okay, that's super helpful when you're going in. It's going to see, we'll write an equation too to get that. So how are we going to solve for 8 hours of work? Well, essentially, we would take 725 and we just multiply it by 8. So if you're working it out on paper, you say, hey, what's 725 times 8? And multiply this thing out. You could also throw it back into a calculator, like I said. And if you multiply it out, I'll erase that out. I'll write these in blue. He gets $58. If you multiply 725 times 8, you'll get 58. All right, let's do 16. If you did 16, if we took that out and we multiplied by 16, you would get $116. $116. And we already have the information for 24. We got that filled out. So how about 32? If we wipe that out, sorry about that. We're supposed to use the eraser. If we put a 32 in there and we multiply it in the calculator, you would end up getting $232. So remember, we're trying to figure out, John's trying to save up $290 to get his new gaming console. We're getting close. He's getting closer. 32 hours. What if he works 40 hours? What if he works a full work week here? He works 40 hours and we multiply it. Guess what? If you multiply it, put it in a calculator, spoiler alert, you're going to get 290. So yeah, John needs to work 40 hours to get that gaming console. That's what this tells us, okay? So we could take real quick, and we'll do another example in just a second. We also take this and throw it into an equation, because you've got this H here, which basically stands for number of hours worked. And we could say, hey, P for pay, or weekly pay, I guess. We could say that the pay equals, P equals $7.25 times H times however many hours he works. And that could be the same. We could graph it. We could say this is a Y equals. Remember, this is kind of the Y column. This is the X column. Same thing. So we could say Y equals 7.25. Sorry, I'm about to put a 5 in there. X could be a way to do it if we were going to go in and graph it as well. Okay. Let's try one more. So this Cake, Oh Yeah Cake, sells 480 cupcakes every month. It takes 1.5 or 1.5 cups of flour to make 12 cupcakes. I know it says to make. We'll just take one. How many cups of flour will Oh Yeah Cakes need to purchase each month to make the cupcakes? Complete the table below to find your solution. Alright, so we can fill out the rest of the table, but we're going to just do exactly what we did on the last one. I know this is a different setup. It's a different word problem, different numbers in the table, but the best way to get this started is like we did last time. We're going to look at the unit rate. They did not give us the unit rate. Unit rate is like if they had 1 cup of flour in there, we would have the unit rate. We don't have it. They have 1.5. It's close, but we want the unit rate. How many cups of flour do we need? Or for 1 cup of flour, should I say, how many cupcakes are we going to get? So here we have more information because they gave us some here, they gave us some here. So we could use either of these. We could say number of cupcakes, 12, 12.0, and we could divide that by 1.5 and we could get the unit rate. You could also do this one. You could say, hey, number of cupcakes, 204, and we could divide that by 25.5, which would be kind of long on paper, but can be done. And these would both help us get the unit rate. So I'll tell you real quick, you throw this into a calculator, you divide these out, you're going to get 8. The unit rate is 8 basically, which means what does 8 stand for in this word problem? Well, 8 stands for a cup of flour makes 8 cupcakes. So a cup of flour makes 8 cupcakes. So let me wipe this out real quick to give us some space, and then we'll write in that unit rate. So on the left and right of your table, make sure you're following around. So 1 cup of flour makes 8 cupcakes. That's how we can start filling in the rest of this table. So as we go down, we can go in and use 8 and multiply it by the cups of flour. So I could do 8 times 10 for the first one. That's going to get us 10 cups of flour would make 80 cupcakes. 45 cups of flour, that would be multiplying 45 basically times 8. You can multiply it on paper, throw it into a calculator, whatever. It's going to be 360. So we'll put that in, 360. Alright. Same thing if we're working on 52, larger numbers, moving on up. That's going to be 416 if you put that in, 416. And then one more, all the way up to, sorry, my pen here, multiplying by 60, that is, would get you 480. So if you did 45 times 60, get us up to 480. And that's how many cups they make in a month. It takes 1.5 cups to make 12 cupcakes. How many cups of flour will Oh Yeah Cupcakes need to purchase each month to make the cupcakes? So how many cups of flour do they need to purchase each month to make the cupcakes? So yeah, 60 cups of flour are needed, and that was already in there, but 60 cups of flour are needed to make their 480 cupcakes. And if we wanted to go in just like we did in the last example, we could write an equation for this one also. You see that the C is like cups of flour over here. We could do an N right over here for number of cupcakes. And basically, and the letters could switch out. So I'm just going to say there's already a C there. We're going to go ahead and use an N. We could switch that out and put an F for flour or a C for cupcakes. But at any rate, the N column equals, the N column is your left column right over here, this one. The N equals, essentially, it'd probably be better if I wrote that as a lowercase n. The N equals the cupcakes. Basically, it equals 8 times C, 8 times the cupcake. So whatever it is, we multiply by 8 and we can get our cups of flour, we can get our cupcakes. And remember, if it was graphed, this is your X, this is your Y, and basically same thing. This the Y equals, in this case, 8X, and we could go in and graph this if we needed to, given the situation. So this is a quick review here on proportional relationships here with unit rate. and putting these in. Make sure you look for the unit rate first. That's kind of the main focus here. Make sure you always look and try to find the unit rate. Make your life easier when you're trying to solve these and fill out the tables.